Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. A former member of the SEC Advisory Committee says that apparently, from what he's heard, the SEC is illegally hiding their communications and activity. And I'll give you the specifics of what he had to say, but he believes that the subpoenas are going to be flying at Gary Gensler, and wouldn't mind seeing that one little bit. Also, there was this article that was shared by attorney John Deaton. It's from 5 years ago from Reuters, and it was warning about potential conflicts of interest from Bill Hinman specifically. Well, how about that for having a crystal ball? And then there was also this headline from the Daily Huddle. Shark Tank billionaire Kevin O'Leary updates crypto bear market outlook, says SEC can spark next bull run. And that's so gross. Nothing against what Kevin O'Leary said. I mean, I think that probably all of us would agree that to whatever, and maybe we dispute to what degree it's true, but I think we'd all agree that to some degree, the SEC, the regulatory uncertainty that persists, once that's cleared up, my gosh, what do you think that's going to do for crypto markets? Because I do believe it'd be a factor. It's not the only thing to consider. But yeah, I mean, Kevin O'Leary, especially with the people he knows and the stuff he said there, I just found it to be insightful. So I wanted to share with you his perspective as well, because he knows fund managers and he knows their perspective and why they aren't into crypto in more of a full force, so to speak. But before going further, to be clear, I do not have a legal or financial background of any kind. I am not offering legal or financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. All right, so there is a clip that was shared by my fellow XRP YouTuber, DAI, and it was from an interview on the Thinking Crypto YouTube channel. So there's host Tony Edward on your screen on the right, interviewing J.W. Verrett on left, listed as a blockchain law professor. Now, J.W. Verrett is the individual who's a former member of the SEC Advisory Committee until earlier this year, and he moved on, and I covered that at the time. And by the way, on his way out the door, it was a delight to see. He just reamed Gary Gensler's approach and the SEC's approach to crypto. And he did it in a very professional sort of way. It wasn't sort of like a childish name-calling sort of way, so I don't want to mischaracterize what he did there. But what I'm stating is that the way in which he asserted his position was very powerful. Now, I went ahead and transcribed this thing, and it's just astonishing because this is somebody who was literally, like J.W. Verrett here, he was literally earlier this year working directly with Gary Gensler. I even saw at least one video clip where he was directly talking to Gary Gensler. And I really appreciate the pullback. Like, J.W. Verrett's clearly a very sharp individual here. And here's what J.W. Verrett had to say in this clip. He said, "Let me tell you, the subpoenas are going to fly over to Gary Gensler, so he needs to be ready for that. And hopefully that will keep some of the excesses that we've seen at the SEC in check." Okay, so I think we're on the same page. Gary Gensler has been tremendously overreaching. It's well understood to be the case. And people in Congress get this. And so you'll see, as I quote from Tony coming up next here, there's a suspicion, a very strong suspicion. I mean, it's been stated directly by people in Congress. If and I'm not making a political statement here because it's not a political channel, but what's being stated here is that if Republicans end up reigning victorious at the midterm elections here, if they end up with more power, you're going to see Gary Gensler, under attack, let's say, with endless subpoenas, being called in to speak to Congress constantly. Attorney Deaton's even talked about that concept as well. So then Tony said to J.W. Verrett, "Interesting point you bring up, because I interviewed Congressman Tom Emmer, and he gave kind of a famous line a month or two ago where he said, 'A new day's coming.' And he was talking to the SEC enforcement director and kind of alluding to potentially Republicans winning the midterms. And then he said they will have the gavel in their hands to keep regulators like Gary Gensler in check." And look, it's not like I was thrilled with what Jay Clayton had to do with crypto, which was he just maintained the status quo of complete crap and then attacked Ripple and some other projects too that shouldn't have been attacked. The only thing where I'll applaud the SEC is when they go after outright scams. But where's the focus now? So, I'm definitely not happy what was happening with Jay Clayton, but Gensler's way worse. He needs to be ranged in, as far as I'm concerned here. And JW responded to that and said the following. This is where like the bomb drop, and I would love to know the specifics of how he got this information. But he said, yeah, and there's a few things they can do. Number one is oversight, subpoenas of emails of such. Check this out. This is the money shot right here. He says, unfortunately, what we've heard is that there are staff at the SEC that are using apps like Signal and WhatsApp, like we do, to try and keep our communications private. They're doing the same thing to keep them private from congressional oversight. Now, if they're doing that from just a government ethics and oversight perspective, it's illegal. So hopefully in that context, and I feel more comfortable with you and me using Signal and WhatsApp to maintain our privacy than I do someone in a government position who should be accountable to the public. So think about this. And this, I don't think that the accusation would surprise anybody, but it is repulsive, is it not? So we already know they don't want to hand over documents that actually exist when they get sued, and now they're communicating in a way that truly makes it impossible to ever even know that there was communication taking place. That's what they're doing now with Signal and WhatsApp, just to hide their tracks. And it's illegal. That's why these people, the audacity, the arrogance, the ego, the disrespect for the rule of law. And so here's what Attorney John Deaton had to say about this. If the SEC Ethics Office doesn't put a stop to this, if it's true, then they are all complicit. Why wouldn't you email about government work? It's despicable if true, and if Gary Gensler and the SEC Enforcement Director allow this practice, if true, then they are traitors to their oaths. And so pause to note, 100% on point. If you're operating, in good faith, and as you're supposed to under oath, why would you not just email? If you're not doing something shady, why are you not just emailing so that the documents are there for whoever would be privy to see them under specific circumstances that in the future, because you know what's going to unfold. But you use an app, because look, let's be clear. If you're using those apps that he cited, you're doing it specifically so that nobody can see what you're doing. That's the only reason that you would do that. You have government email. You would otherwise use that, would you not? So it's very clear if this is indeed happening, that's pretty repugnant. And then Attorney Deaton says, if this is a reaction to Judge Torres ordering the Hinman emails to be produced, then it means two things. Number one, the emails are likely damaging to the SEC's case or image, or both. And number two, they truly don't know who they work for, the American people. Finally, it would be an immature and stupid reaction to the judge's ruling. Judge Neprin ruled 90% in favor of the SEC. Everything except the Hinman speech emails were declared privileged. Even the June 13th, 2018 XRP Howey memo was ruled privileged. These people are babies. Exactly right. And so, just to be clear, he's not talking about, in a general sense, the Judge Nepper ruling 90% in favor of the SEC. What he's saying specifically is pertaining to specific documents. The pretrial stuff has been overwhelmingly positive for Ripple and XRP holders as a result. But in terms of those additional documents, yeah, he's saying he's just kind of obviously estimating here about 90% in favor of the SEC, and then they still want to hide all of this stuff. My gosh. And then there was this article from a little over 5 years ago at this point, and I came across it thanks to Attorney John Deaton, and he wrote the following. He tagged Pete Schroeder, Reuters correspondent, and he said, Pete Schroeder of Reuters wrote about Hinman's massive conflicts of interest in 2017. Mr. Schroeder, are you aware that it has been conclusively proven Hinman violated financial conflict laws and nonprofit watchdog Empower Oversight referred the matter to the Inspector General for an investigation? And I haven't seen anything to this point where Pete Schroeder responded. I don't even know if Pete Schroeder has seen it to this point, although there's so many likes and retweets, one would think it would probably pop up in his notifications at some point. It's just a question of will he respond. But how foretelling is this? Here's the headline from August 17th of 2017. Exclusive, SEC officials' holdings, legal work pose potential conflicts. And let me just go down to the relevant portion having to do with Hinman specifically. It starts right here. William Hinman, the SEC's Director of Corporate Finance, said his former law firm, Simpson, Thacher & Bartlett, represented big banks as well as technology companies. Should those companies come before the SEC, potential conflicts of interest could arise. Well, what do you know about that? So you've got his law firm, Simpson Thacher, member of the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance. It's almost like this guy had a damn crystal ball. So it does make me kind of wonder, is he aware of this? Because it's worth writing additional information about this now that 5 years has passed. That's for damn sure. So we'll see. I mean, if anything pops up, I'll be happy to report on it. But it's just repulsive how the SEC has such a dramatic impact on just, and I think it's fair to say, it's like people's net worth the world over. Because there's a lot of people that have very real money in crypto. And also people have their money, maybe they'd have more in crypto if not for the SEC. Because again, yes, it's impacting people here in the United States, but it's having ripples throughout the entire world. So take a look at this. Here's the headline from the Daily Huddle. Shark Tank billionaire Kevin O'Leary updates crypto bear market outlook, says SEC can spark next bull run. And again, so we could have a fun debate about to what degree the SEC's having an impact on this. But I think unquestionably Kevin O'Leary is right in that they are. Like the SEC's having a massive impact. Piece reads as follows. I'm just going to cover a snippet of this here. O'Leary predicts that the Stablecoin Transparency Act, a bill that aims to achieve regulatory clarity for stablecoins, will be a signal that the entire industry is on the verge of legitimization, inviting waves of new capital in. And here's a quote from Kevin O'Leary of Shark Tank fame. I have a personal speculation around regulation. I talked about that earlier, that if the Stablecoin Act gets put into law, that will be a signal that all crypto will be regulated at some point. Some people feel good about regulation, others don't, but here's a fact to consider regardless of your position. Most of the sovereign wealth funds that I work for as an indexer have zero position in crypto of any kind. When you ask them if they're going to buy anything, they want the granddaddy, which is Bitcoin. They're willing to put 50 basis points to 1% into Bitcoin when their compliance departments allow them to. And that won't happen until the SEC rules it as a commodity or a security. End quote. Now think about that. Bitcoin is viewed by people just the world over as being safe in the eyes of the SEC, but even the SEC has not declared it to be a non-security. They haven't. You've had Gary Gensler give his personal opinion, which you'd think would actually carry a little bit more weight for something like this, but you don't even have a spot Bitcoin ETF to this point. You know, people are waiting for all this. There's real money sitting on the sidelines, and we have to be patient. And now, as far as this point about the Stablecoin Act, this getting put into law, and that's going to be a sign. Well, even without that, who doesn't think this is going to get figured out? It's just a really messy process. So, I mean, I would disagree a little bit on that. I mean, it's going to set that aside. Say that never even existed. At some point, something's going to occur, and it will be clear who's in charge of what, because people are fighting over this every single day. Like, we're watching history unfold in real time. There's going to be a victor here. And so that's why it's so important for people in the blockchain industry to be pushing back, as many are increasingly doing. That's also why it's kind of disgusting that, you haven't seen more support for Ripple, although that has been changing to some degree recently. Still not sufficiently in my estimation, just my personal opinion here. But yeah, money's going to flow in like crazy once this is all, because look, crypto's not going away. These people these big firms that don't have an investment yet, it's not that they think it's not going to be or not worth, putting money into and developing and, engaging in entrepreneurial endeavors on such, using such technology. It's not that they think that. They don't want to get sued into oblivion by the asshats at the SEC. So, I'm just saying, it is what it is, man. Let me know what you think, but I'll go ahead and stop yammering on. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.